Hey guys, if you're looking for help with your Amazon business in terms of troubleshooting or strategy, visit sellersessions.com/consultancy or drop me a message to danny@sellersessions.com. Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Again, I bring back Chris. How you doing?
Fantastic, Danny. Great to be back. Thank you.
No worries. And as you can tell by Chris's voice, we're on part 2 of covering Amazon Australia. So we covered a lot of ground in part 1, the move over, etc. We discussed the landscape over there, the competition, some of the tools and stuff. So just to balance stuff off, because obviously it's still in its infancy and stuff. Give me some of the good things about Amazon Australia.
I'm going to give you the good, the bad, and some of the ugly as well, Danny.
That's fine. That's what we do on the show, isn't it? It's like it's not about chatting shit. We just basically, like, you've got to pick it all apart so the audience go, well, actually, this is worth my while, because it's very easy to say, oh, yeah, it's amazing. Get over there, and do these 3 little tricks and it'll make you a millionaire and all that bollocks. But the reality is this is a business and you have to attack things at the right time. Business often is about time.
And it's also about 80-20. And in this case, probably 95-5.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And until it reaches that point. So
that's right.
Hit me with some of the good stuff, the juice.
Well, obviously, the best thing is hardly any reviews. So because the marketplace is so new, if you do a search, you go to Google and you type in Amazon Australia bestsellers, and you have a look at, say, the kitchen and dining category, you'll see that the number one product, last time I looked, didn't have a single review. That's the best-selling product in the kitchen and dining category. You head across and do the same thing over in the United States, and you'll see that the number one best-selling product has over 27,000 or 28,000. So, that's the sort of level that you're talking about. So, very few reviews, and as I mentioned in the previous episode, because you don't have a lot of sales, it's actually, there's not a lot of sales velocity. It's actually quite easy to rank products by not having to give away too many units to get to the top of the tree. The algorithms are pretty much identical in Australia as they are.
And listings as well. Are they poorly optimized, 2 images with 2 bullet points and no description? So there's plenty of scope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is sort of like Amazon back in maybe 2012, so you can actually outmarket other sellers on Amazon. See, when Australian companies were approached by Amazon to set up here in Australia on Amazon Australia, a lot of them just reverted to flat files, and they didn't really know what they were doing. So because of the flat file sort of system, they've got
I'll
one
let you
image.
into a little secret. A lot of people at Amazon don't know how to use a flat file. The catalog team are fantastic, but most people screw that up. Yeah.
Including myself, and I've been around the block and back a few times. But so I think it also, look, just as with that international seller focus, they don't have to pay GST. So unless you hit a sales threshold here in Australia of over about 75,000 Australian dollars, that's pretty unlikely for most international sellers in their first year. So, so you're not actually paying any, not having to remit any GST or even register for GST here in Australia, and that in itself is a pretty big deal. I'd strongly recommend, if you do intend to be selling that much, or if you have tipped that threshold, that you get in touch with, say, Arnie Shields over at dolmanbateman.com.au. That's just a resource I guess we can throw into the show notes. They're a very good accountancy firm up in Sydney that help a lot of Amazon sellers here and internationally as well. I guess the other thing too is that a lot of the sellers here in Australia haven't really twigged on to the fact that FBA even exists. They've probably heard of it, but they don't. It's very unsophisticated. So a lot of them are still shipping themselves. So with Prime here now, there's a real opportunity to, just by creating a Prime eligible listing, you can see an uplift in sales just by doing that one simple thing. The last thing that I've noticed, and I've seen this every time I've expanded to any marketplace, is that the listings that I have in the United States, if I duplicate those properly with the same SKU and the same ISBN or EAN number or UPC, all the reviews are then brought across onto my listings here in Australia, and that's also very handy. In fact, you can use an image on your listing to say, check out our reviews, down below with an arrow pointing down, of our USA reviews, So so there's a lot of the different things that you can do. So they're quite a lot of the good things. So let's talk about the bad. So
cool.
At the moment, there's no individual seller plan. So that means you can't, downgrade your account. You are stuck paying sort of anywhere between $45 and I think and maybe up to $55. It varies a little bit for some reason, depending on who you are and what you're selling. obviously I mentioned the taxes. Look, that is a problem, particularly for local sellers. Not so much for the international ones. Us local ones really don't have a competitive advantage over international sellers because we do have to pay GST no matter what. The Amazon, this is a big one, I think, is that Amazon will only accept a domestic bank account for your fortnightly payouts to be paid into. And that's a big problem. Yeah, that's massive. So you are going to have to fork out and, get a service like OFX.
Oh, you can use it. Yeah, you had. Okay, I must have misunderstood you there. No, most people selling internationally will have a Currencies Direct, World First, or whatever, one of these currencies, or OFX, like you mentioned. Because isn't OFX? They're one of the largest out there, and they're also Australian based, aren't they? OFX a lot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I use them for all of my currency conversions out of the Europe and United States, all that stuff. Yeah, and so
I thought what you said is that I misheard what you said. I thought you actually said you need to set up an Australian bank account. I think that's going to be a world of pain to go over on a flight, set that out, and then come back again, because that's like game over. That can happen, So.
No, that's right. I mean, that's the only way at the moment. Look, this is probably going to change. Like, as I mentioned in the last episode, sponsored ads at the moment don't exist on Amazon Australia. I think it's only a matter of time before they do. Yeah. And I'd also argue that it's only a matter of time before Amazon sets up this sort of international and currency conversion, system that they've got in other marketplaces. So you should be able to sort yourself out. Well, it doesn't
matter, like with the sponsored ad thing, it kind of don't matter if you're in sexual wellness and stuff like that, where you don't have sponsored ads. So, maybe they can make that work. So what's on the ugly side of things?
Oh, how far do I go here? What's really ugly?
Let's go down the rabbit hole.
Well, as I mentioned in the previous episode as well, consumer sentiment's pretty bad. The press have been having a field day, and I'll just sort of cover broadly the sort of sentiment to begin with, and I'll dive into some other issues in a second. But a few years ago, I think it was probably back in 2013 or 2014, Starbucks marched into Australia thinking that they were, another company from Seattle by coincidence, marched into Australia thinking they'd take over the place. Australians love our local coffee shops, and we have a very sophisticated coffee palate. And basically, we sent Starbucks packing within about 3 years. They're still kind of here, but they've sort of licensed out some branding, I think, to some other franchises or something. But they tuck their tail back between their legs and march straight back to Seattle. So there's been a lot of talk about could Amazon Australia actually be the next Starbucks? In terms of, are they going to get chased out of town? So that's sort of the broad thing going on. I think also you've got, as I mentioned in the previous episode as well, you've got other competitors like Costco, for example, is a big American company that is loved here in Australia. And they've got, I think, about 9 massive warehouses all throughout the country in most of our capital cities. And they have just, they're in the process of completing a fairly sizable fulfillment centre up in Sydney, 18 football grounds in size, that sort of scale. What's more scary, I think, for Amazon and indeed most of the other marketplaces that exist here is that Costco is going e-commerce in 2019. So that could have a real impact on Amazon as well. The exchange rate is probably the biggest issue. It fluctuates a lot. Our currency, the Australian dollar, is very volatile against the US dollar, and it has been in a pretty consistent downward trend against the US dollar, which means that one Australian dollar is only buying about 70 US cents, 72, I think, as we record.
What's it up against sterling? That must be pretty awful as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. You're looking at, I think it's about 56 pence will buy one Australian dollar. So you're not bringing much money home when you transfer it back into your local currency. So be really careful and monitoring your pricing on Amazon Australia if you're an international seller, if you're having monies remitted back to you. So you've really got to watch that. Look, there, as I mentioned too in the previous episode, the international arbitrages, the Amazon arbitrages are really going to town. And if you want to see what trolling looks like, just go to Amazon Australia's official Facebook page and just look at the Australian consumer comments and input. I feel sorry for the moderators of that group because they're just under siege for most of the time. But look, after all of that, I actually still think that it is worth setting up. I have enjoyed modest sales on Amazon Australia, probably about maybe 4 to 5% without really doing much of my overall sales in the US. It's a lot like Canada, I suppose, but not quite at Canada's level, which for me is around about 10 to 15% of my US sales. So, it's getting there. And it's going to succeed, I think. Look, they're just too big to fail. They've spent too much time, too much money. They're pretty determined, and they don't show any signs of slowing down. They're continuing to roll things out. I think they also probably need to get a bit real on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
I think for Australian consumers, it's around about $80 a year. I think last time I looked. I actually think that Amazon needs to probably give away Prime, have it for free for the first 12 months or 6 months or 3 months trial or something like that to really get Australian consumers on board.
You tell that to their CFO. Yeah. They might have a different opinion on that. But talk to me about the arbors over there. That's hurt them a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, that's hurt them massively. So they, shortly after Amazon opened up the marketplace, the international arbors basically duplicated listings out of a lot of different marketplaces, and then jacked the price up by 10, in some cases even 20 times higher than what they're listed for example, on the United States. I think I looked at one last week. In fact, I presented one or two in Hong Kong recently, which was like a spice rack, for example. I think it was about $35 on Amazon.com, and then here in Australia it was about $425, like Australian dollars. Even accounting for exchange rates, that's just ridiculous. And Australians, really get it that they're being gouged with that sort of pricing. And I think, as I mentioned in the last episode as well, Australians are very unsophisticated about how Amazon works. A lot of them don't even realize third-party sellers can operate on Amazon. They think it is Amazon actually gouging them in terms of pricing. So that also has had a huge impact on Amazon's reputation with consumers here. Yeah,
makes sense. So let's talk about Amazon succeeding there. Let's talk about international sellers on the platform, because I don't want this conversation just to be about the bad side or the not so great side. The whole point is, sure, I mentioned earlier, it's all about timing. But people need to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's no point in saying, "Hey, yeah, come here. It's amazing. Come to this, shiny new palace. We'll move you in, and you'll make loads of money." Because I know that people have to sell it that way in order to get you to go over there. But we need to look at it as an opportunity that when it's ripe, and when's the best time to strike. So, talk to me about Chinese sellers entering onto the platform, if there are any.
There's a lot. Yeah, I'd say they make up the vast majority of the third-party sellers that are here.
Yeah.
They really, as soon as the gates were open, they flooded in, and they're doing pretty well. A lot of them are selling quite a lot. Anything from sleep masks through to diffusers to basically anything that's electronic.
All the usual stuff. Yeah.
The usual stuff that the Chinese are into.
Yeah.
So it's still a bit of a land grab. We've got new categories opening up, and that creates in itself another land grab, to get first mover advantage into these new categories. I think if you're taking a strategic long-term view, and I'm looking out to sort of 2 to 3, 4, 5 years down the track, you don't want to be, I think Ryan Moran expressed this really well, you don't want to be the pioneer with the face down with the arrows in the back on Amazon Australia. What you do want, you sort of got to, it's really hard to get the timing right. But, I think that if you get set up now and you're starting to get reviews, I might add to another good thing is that Australians actually have a high propensity to leave product reviews. Now, the reason for that is because we get reviewed, by eBay sellers, because we buy on eBay all the time, and we are expected to review our experience with an eBay seller. So as a consumer, that we get reviewed, and we're expected to review the person we bought the product from.
Yeah.
Something that's missing from Amazon. I think Amazon should allow third-party sellers to review some customers. It's probably a bad idea, but so when consumers buy from Amazon Australia, they tend to want to leave a review, and they sort of expect that that's what they're supposed to do. It doesn't take long to if you get established now and you spend a bit of time optimizing listing, or indeed just copying your listing across, if you're an established seller, I wouldn't be setting up on Australia, for example, as a brand new seller thinking that you're going to make it. If you've never sold on Amazon before.
It's not a primary marketplace, basically.
No, it's not. It's an add-on or an adjunct to your other Amazon activities globally. where it's very easy to set up the account. It's very easy to list your current listings and copy them down into Australia. I wouldn't call it set and forget. You're still going to have to log in every day to make sure you haven't got a message or something that you're missing your SLAs on customer messaging and whatnot. But if you've got someone looking at it out of the corner of their eye, you've got a little bit of inventory. If for example, if you're selling 1,000, if you're exporting 1,000 units from China into the United States, into Amazon and US, carve off 20 units and pop them into a warehouse down here in Australia. Australia doesn't have a free trade agreement. Australia has a free trade agreement with China. So everything that's brought in, there are no duties. So you don't have to worry about that 25% duty, tariff thing that's coming in, Trump's tariff.
That's an interesting thing. Are you saying that people come from China but bring it via the US?
No. In fact, what they do is they when they're creating a shipping plan, they'll get their freight forwarder to ship, say 20 units of a 1,000 unit quantity to Australia and pop it in a warehouse over here, just have it air freighted in.
So, you're talking air freight. So what we haven't kind of discussed that one, probably jumping ahead a bit. Let's talk about the setup. So business name, entity, all the usual stuff, physical address of your business, which you can use for a 3PL. Is there 3PL? Right. Is there 3PLs out there that you know of at the top of your head? That people I would look off the top of my head. I don't, but you got me on the spot. But certainly, all you got to do is just go to amazon.com.au. You got to go to google.com.au and just type in Amazon freight forwarding or something, or freight forwarding services, the usual stuff. There's little prep centers. There's a little ecosystem that's already starting to spring up around the thing that is to take care of the locals, basically.
Yeah. There's image services popping up. There's freight services. There's preparation centers. There's all that sort of third party stuff that is starting to spring up around this space. So there's definitely green shoots appearing. So. But yeah, look, it's simple as to have a look and see what you're in for. All you got to do is just go to amazon.com.au and you'll see the classic little link that says sell. And that's just a little, link at the top of the page and one of the nav things there. And just click that. The FAQ section, just click the FAQ tab when you get to that page. You'll see that you need .com.au, the name of the individual or entity that operates the business. It's a bit of know your customer stuff, the usual physical address of your business, and that could be offshore. That's fine. Your business credit card and the address where you receive your credit card statement. So it's not too hard to set up an account on Amazon Australia. Yeah, it's pretty. Cool. That's pretty much all you got to do.
Yeah. So logistically, are you suggesting that people send straight into Amazon or get a 3PL? Because what are the fees and stuff are not too heavy over there at this stage, are they? Obviously, you've got the monthly plan fees, 55.
Yeah, but I think that's at the moment though, Danny, they're waiving those fees for the first 2 months, or indeed I think it's 6 months. It's one of those things where because a lot of merchants were actually deserting the platform because they weren't getting any sales, Amazon had to run up the white flag and say, all right, okay, we'll refund your monthly subscription. And in fact, anybody that signs up from now on can have 6 months free or whatever. You'd have to check those details because it changes,
But it's worth knowing because if someone wants to dip their toe in the water. So most importantly, don't just ship what's in your catalog. You need to understand what sells. So give us an example of what's selling. Ubiquitous stuff, I imagine, umbrellas and things like that, because it rains in every country,
Yeah, that's right. Although, umbrellas are seasonal, but again, got to check for the usual stuff. I would recommend that you do get eGrow and do get Keeper, as I mentioned in the previous episode, those two tools, because they will give you a sense of what's going on. The simple things like the 999 inventory trick and depletion and checking every day to see if it's dropped, you can sort of do those sorts of tricks here. It's still pretty, there's not a lot of, multiple sellers on the same listing that can mess you up with that sort of stuff. So it's those sort of tactics still kind of work for most listings. But yeah, look, it's as simple as really just heading over to Amazon.com and just looking at the best sellers and just going, right, well, diffusers are doing well, or this particular style of umbrella is doing really well. It's selling, 100,000 a month. It's anything that's popular in the US is likely to be just as popular here in Australia, but at a much lower scale. I don't think I mentioned in the last episode, we've got 25 million people here. We just ticked over 25 mil. I think Canada, which is a very similar kind of marketplace I mentioned earlier, has around about 30 million. So, and obviously America's got 320 or something, or 285. I can't remember how many there, but it's a tenth the size in a very immature Amazon marketplace. So, but yeah, it's looking at what's already hot somewhere else and then bringing them to Australia and doing a handful of giveaways, 3, 4, 5 units. That's pretty much all you need to do to be on page one, probably close to the top.
Yeah. Well, that seems easy enough. But so going back to my original point, where if you are going to invest time now, for me, from my conversation with you, it's not quite mature. It depends on what your roadmap's like and what you've got on hand in terms of staff and cash flow. Because obviously in your Amazon business, cash is king. So for a dual attack, is it worth setting up? I don't know whether this worked. I'm just doing off the top of my head. Joe Lister or something like that of that ilk, so that you can run from Amazon over in Australia into eBay. Then you bring stock over. If you put it in a 3PL,
that's right.
Then you can deal with maybe doing eBay and Amazon at the same time. Then that's way it makes it a bit more worth your while.
Indeed. And in fact, there are other marketplaces as well that are pretty strong. So you've got another one called Kogan. It's that was created in 2006 here in Australia by a guy called Ruslan Kogan, who originally sort of private labeled TV sets and brought those in and really got the e-commerce game going here in Australia. Yeah. He's now listed on the Australian Stock Exchange as a public listed company. I think they're doing around about 300 or 400 million in sales here a year, which is obviously a drop in the bucket compared to Amazon. But they do have a marketplace that you can apply to sell on and sort of spread your risk and have multiple irons in the Australian marketplace fire. There's another one called catch.com.au. I think, between eBay, Catch and Kogan and now Amazon, they're probably the big four. There may be a handful of others. There's things like Gumtree as well. Gumtree is also having a bit of a push to attract, businesses that have consumer products selling brand new rather than that sort of, buy, sell, swap stuff that you did come to expect in the past from Gumtree.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Well, look, it's been good. Let's leave that there. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
Look, as I said before, I think there's the 80-20 rule with, so stick to your knitting. If you're really crushing on Amazon.com and you're making most of your money there, or indeed any other marketplace, frankly, just stick to that. And, if you've got a little bit of headroom, a bit of headspace and a little bit of time and you're a bit bored, have a bit of a play in Australia, get yourself set up, ship a few units.
Yeah.
It's no skin really. It's not that hard. You can DHL them in and, you're off to the races. Yeah.
Sounds good. And best ways people can reach you?
Sure. So I have a little consultancy here in Australia that helps mainly Australian companies sell their consumer brands and products onto other marketplaces throughout the world, Amazon marketplaces. So that's Chris at Amazon Sales, and that's spelled AMAZN sales.com. The reason for that was because I didn't want to get a lawsuit from who.
Yeah.
That's for the misspell. And you can visit our website, amazonsales.com. And of course the podcast, which is theaustralianseller.com. So great. Subscribe and say good day.
Thanks, Chris, for coming in today. Guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you again in the next few days. Take care.